Hello, hello, and welcome to your weekly tarot reading with myself, Reverend Arlene C. And this is for the week of Sunday, May 11th, 2025 to Saturday, May 17th, 2025. So we have the World, Page of Wands, Knight of Wands, and then the Hangman and the Three of Swords both flew out of the deck together, but they were all in both in reverse. So there's a lot of fiery energy with the wands right now. As I said in I think other readings, we are coming to this complete cycle, and this is a 9 year. 2025 is a 9 year, and so next year 2026 will be a 1 year, right? So it's new beginning. So this is the completing of cycles, and that we're feeling that more and more. Even though we are only in May, so much has already taken shape and place. There's been a lot of changes happening, in the outer world, with governments, money, everything, right? So, but I feel too that as much as it's easy for us to get lost in the outside world, it's about us looking within our own world, within our four walls, within ourselves, in our body, and looking at our health, looking at our mental well-being, our spiritual well-being, our physical well-being, and I feel that that is something that is being called forward right now, because a lot of what's happening on the outside world is just a distraction. It is to distract us from what is inside. And then the Four of Wands was on the bottom of the deck, which to me too represents family, it represents home, it represents your four walls, like I was saying earlier, right? So as much as the world wants to distract us from the inner world, which is our true world, right? Because it's where we exist every day, but it's also understanding that the world that we see is kind of like a construct in a way, right? So it's something that was already created, and we're kind of just watching it like a movie, but at the same time it's one of those very interactive movies, right, where we it's like 3D plus, right? Isn't like I think there's that new, or there was that other kind of version of like not 3D, but maybe there was even like a 4D where, in movie theaters sometimes they would spray little things so you would smell, the fragrance they did in a movie, or you might feel little splats of water so you knew that you're getting splashed with water too. So it's more interactive in that way. And that is what we experience in this human experience, right? We are like right in there, and we are a part of the movie, and we like to think of ourselves often as the main character, but we really aren't in those movies. We're just the main character in our own life. But still, so what's happening is that as these cycles are closing out, these timelines are closing out, these other realities are closing out, and we're taking shape and learning what is happening. We're being more consciously aware, right? And we're kind of, and for a lot of us too, we are noticing that this is all a distraction. It's all about the propaganda and the fear mongering and the control, right? And we're realizing that, like we need to be focusing on here, and focusing, bringing our attention to what we actually can have control over, since control doesn't really exist. But what we do technically have control over is our emotions and how we respond and show up. So what's being asked right now too is that it's asking us to not just jump to conclusions, right? It's because with the fiery energy of the Page of Wands and the Knight of Wands, right? So the page is still young, still kind of naive, kind of, and similar with the Knight of Wands, is kind of hot-headed. So you don't want to react, right? This is about pausing for a moment and asking ourselves really important questions before we respond. So it's about not reacting, right? Not being in that fight or flight and that we're being asked to, you know, pay attention to the energies we are experiencing and the feelings we're feeling, but not attached to the story that is attached to those feelings, because the story probably isn't real, right? It isn't really, really true. And it's more about just acknowledging the feeling that we're having. So acknowledging that we're being triggered, or, you know, and even like sometimes with this exciting energy, right? We can get lost in that excitement energy too. And then, you know, we get so excited we don't think of, you know, the big picture, and then we kind of get stuck in something that we don't really want to be a part of, right? Like sometimes you get excited about a new job and you're just like, yeah, I want to do it, blah, blah, blah. And then you realize there's maybe a lot of fine print, or there's a lot of things you didn't ask ahead of time. And now you're kind of, you know, kind of with your hands up in the air of like, oh crap, right? But I also feel like it can correspond with a lot of things, right? Because you look at the hangman and the three of swords that are in reverse. So it's about looking at where we're placing our intention and attention, right? And it's again about speaking in truth to ourselves, being honest with ourselves, you know, and about how often we mistake sacrifice as a loss or giving up something. And we see it as a negative instead of seeing it as we are making space for something new and better and bigger for us, right? And a sacrifice isn't a sacrifice if you're doing what you love, right? So how can that be a sacrifice? If you are, you know, going to school for something you wanted to do. So is it a sacrifice maybe not going out with friends? Is it a sacrifice not, you know, buying takeout every week? I don't. Is it really a sacrifice, or is it more about focusing on your goal because that's where your passion is, and you think about what you are making room for, right? So this is also too. It's a lot about our perspective and our perception of things, and you know, and where we're coming from. Are we coming from a space of our triggers and our emotional hurts, and that's how we see everything, so that's our level of understanding? Or are we willing to kind of step back a moment and talk to ourselves and be like, am I reacting because of, you know, and assuming? And you know what they say about assuming: when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. So are you assuming that these people or this situation is going to turn out like it did before? You know, we love to predict so that we don't hurt ourselves, or we feel like we'll be less in pain, where then what we're actually doing is we're actually blocking the good, that it's not even the good, but the experiences that we are meant to have, because there is always a reason for every experience we have. And it's not about seeing it as good or bad. It's about, what did I learn from this experience, and how is it going to benefit me later, and how will it make me more wise? So I feel that right now we are being called into understanding our wisdom, right? Because, you know, when you see the hangman and the ball and the halo of light, right? It's knowledge. It's knowledge there for us to understand and receive and take in and integrate. So we are being asked to understand what triggers us, understand the programs and hurts and struggles we've experienced, to take in everything we've learned, and to no longer allow it to control us, but we use it to gain further wisdom and knowledge to support ourselves in this journey, so that we can close out the cycles and build a stronger foundation within ourselves and outside of us. That's all I have for this week. Thank you so much for being here, surrounding you all in love. I truly appreciate you and your guidance and your presence here. Love you so much. Until next week.